Hey everybody, welcome back. We are in the Book of Ecclesiastes today, and what a fun word to say. It's a more difficult word to spell, especially if you have problems like I do. So we are going into this book. My brother found it not to be as entertaining as I did.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Last time I kind of enjoyed Proverbs a little bit, and you did not. And you like this book, and I don't see how you like this book, but okay.
Well, I just think it was more entertaining. My first note up here at the top of the page says, "It's a rather dark book, yet I think it's the best so far." Which all of them have really been pretty dark, but this just is what it is. I um, I say let's just jump right into it, sir. What do you say?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
I got chapter one. It says it starts off with words of a preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem, and it goes on. I have a note here that says it seems as now that the people are like the past, where meaning that uh, they don't know history and they're doomed to repeat it. I just got that kind of feel and vibe from it. I guess kind of not dissimilar from a lot of the past books where they recount all the old stories over and over and over again. It seems.
Well, I think this one does have a more interesting feel on a literary perspective because the first little bit is an introduction by the writer, and he's talking about a teacher. And then you have the conclusion, which he goes back over the teacher's point. But it almost has a feel of the writer or the teacher is getting a group of people together to learn. So they don't have that historical point of view. So that's kind of the point of this book, actually. So
Right. And it continues on in chapter 1. It says, "What advantage is to man by all his labor that he laboreth under the sun?" Just asking the question, which is a good question to ask, I thought. And it said, "A generation is going and a generation is coming, and the earth to age is standing. Also the sun hath risen and the sun hath gone, and into this place painting it is rising there." I just thought this was interesting. It's almost like there's a time and season for everything. Is almost what the author's trying to say. And it says going into the south and turning around into the north, turning around, turning around. The wind is going, and by its circuits the wind hath returned, and all the streams are going into the sea, and the sea is not full. Unto a place whither the streams are going, thither they are turning back to go. And I found this really interesting because it says all these things are wearying, they're tiring. A man is not able to speak. The eye is not satisfied by seeing, nor filled is the ear from hearing. I just thought that was interesting that he's talking about all the natural things of the world, and man is still not satisfied. It kind of struck me, pulled me in on the first chapter, which is so unlike the other books so far.
see, now that kind of goes to my philosophy of why I don't think there needs to be an afterlife. I think this whole Christian doctrine that you go to heaven is ridiculous to me. Just on the first part of this book, he's explaining how wonderful and beautiful the earth is in its natural form and how blessed we are to be given such a gift. So I think to want more, to even expect more, is folly. I think it's just kind of a strange thing that, I mean, the world, even in this Bible, is how they're describing it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and it is beautiful. The world is fantastic. The human experience can be made wonderful or miserable, mostly by one's own perception. I mean, there are a lot of cases that you don't have any control over, and a lot of people don't have control over certain circumstances. But to the large degree, we do have a lot of control over our perception, and that kind of is what it spoke to me as I was reading it. And it said, "See this, it is new. Already it hath been in the ages that were before us. There is not a remembrance of former generations, and also of the latter that are. There is no remembrance of them with those that are at the last." And that is so true. It makes me think of a lot of our own philosophy in that everything is temporary, and most people can't like for instance, let's say most people have experienced that are about our age of a grandparent passing away. And unless your grandparent is somebody that made some huge mark on history, they're only still going to be a footnote. There might be markers around the world of some type that mark their occasion of life or some achievement, but your own personal grandparents, and for almost everybody, after 2 generations, after you, your son's not going to know your grandpa, and they just fade away, and that's just kind of what the whole memory of everybody. It's just this ongoing cycle of we rise up from the earth, we go down, and then nobody remembers other than whole societies.
Yeah, and if you want to think of it and see a visual of what you just described, the perfect example is in Troy when Achilles is speaking to his mother about going to the war. It says if you go, your name will live on through eternity. But if you stay, you'll find a woman that loves you, children, and get grandchildren, and they'll love you, and you can play with them. But after that, your name will be lost. So your destiny walks hand in hand with your demise.
Yeah, for sure. And that is, and I don't believe that is a bad thing. I think it is something that is just natural. We should accept that and just keep rolling. And it says, I have seen all the works that have been done under the sun, and lo, the whole is vanity and vexation of spirit. I just found that a little... I don't think everything is vexation. As one of our previous videos, everything is a disturbance. It's your perception whether it's a pleasurable disturbance or not. But not everything is a vexation. I can understand how we can reasonably come to a conclusion and label everything vanity. But that's an abstract philosophical debate. But a lot of things are vanity because, we have to deal with the egos of ourselves and everyone else.
Everything is vexation if you take into perspective what side of the line you're on. If we're talking about from the center of Mother Earth and all its beauty, humanity itself would be a vexation. Any temple that we build would be a vexation. You're taking away the natural beauty and splendor. And nature does have a way of taking those things back. So it depends on really which side of the philosophical argument you're talking about. Because still in the very beginning here, he's talking about the earth's natural beauty. So I'm not so sure that he's not speaking on that we are the vexation upon the earth.
Yeah, it very well could be. And you're right. The earth does overtake everything. You could look at St. Peter's Basilica, the whole Vatican City. If it went untouched by man for 100 years, it would be overgrown and starting to collapse. Yeah, it's something. So anyway, he who addeth knowledge addeth pain. And boy, is that true. That old adage is ignorance is bliss is certainly true.
It definitely can be. I don't know if it's 100% true, but there's sometimes I think that I would not like to know that information. But then there's other times that knowledge has given me a great sense of power and been able to compete in my own world with myself on a much different level.
Yeah, for sure. And competing with yourself is what it's all about. It's why we're here. We're trying to learn the truth and get to the meat and not the superficialness of what everybody else tells us is in this book. We want to know for ourselves and read it, and that's what we're doing. And it says, I saw that there is an advantage to wisdom above folly. And boy, that certainly is true. There's a big difference between knowledge and memorizing things and having a bunch of trivial information and actual wisdom. It's a big difference. And that's what, all you can do is strive to get there one day at a time. And there is no remembrance to the wise, with the fool, to the age. And that's true. We're going to forget the wise just as we have forgotten the foolish. All of them. Even ourselves and yourselves. And for that which is already in the days that are coming is all forgotten. And how dieth the wise with the fool? And that is true. And that's why, I don't know, maybe that's why I said it's dark, but I think it is good to contemplate these kind of issues, it is necessary for man to contemplate its own demise. I mean, we're all going to pass, so the realization of that and coming to grips with that, however you can, I think helps provide a more rich life. It allows you to be a little bit more circumspect. It allows you to feel life more. Hug and love the ones you love around you, and enjoy it, because it's here in a flash and gone in a flash. And it says, I have hated life, for sad to me is the work that hath been done under the sun, for the whole is vanity and vexation of spirit. And I can relate to that, but at the same time I'm thinking, this is the Bible. This is supposed to be the uplifting wonder of spiritual enlightenment, and here in the Bible it's just talking about how they hate life.
Well, I think it's good to have a positive and negative perspective on a lot of things. I find that you can make a much better decision if you can sit down and write the good parts and the bad parts down. And if you have a little bit of the negative, I think it helps you make a better, stronger decision. And I don't necessarily see this so much as negative. I think the overwhelming principle of this book is that the world, the earth, you in it, is vapor. It's at a transient state. It's not liquid. It's not a solid. It's vapor. It goes off into the ether. Now, if you boil water over a stove, it comes up into vapor. Is that vapor gone? Well, no, it's still somewhere. Like if you pour this wine into the ocean, is it gone? No, it's still there. It's part of the ocean. It's part of a much bigger and grander thing. But just because you pour this out doesn't mean it goes away. It just mixes in and melds in with everything else. So the reason that I didn't care so much for this is I like the principle that they're getting to of vapor. What I don't like is that they have to bring everything back into we are the chosen people, and this book is about us, and this is our writings, and this is our God. And don't take the bigger message that I'm trying to give you, that the universe is something out there, and that you are a part of the universe. And even when you die, your life is just vapor. But just like that water in a pot, it's not gone. When your spirit departs, it's just gone somewhere else, and you mix and meld with the rest of everything. So it's not necessarily down or dark to me. It's a transitional phase. It's a vapor. So it depends on how you look at it. You can see that this is bad. Oh yeah, we're going to die. Nothing matters. Or you could see that, you have that ice in your glass to keep it cool, and that's really nice. But when it transforms into water, there's still something there that you can in turn drink and still nourish your body with. It didn't last its usefulness. And then when you're breathing, because you consume that water, so you need it to go to a strenuous activity, well, that water is now exiting your body in a vaporous form back out into the ether. Now that water at some point is going to go back into the atmosphere, congeal, turn into rain, and restart the whole cycle over. It never went anywhere. Just like what I would choose to think of your life energy is that vapor in which they're speaking of. And it's not over when this ends. Something is coming next. It's just a transition. And that's the way that I chose to read this. And I see it as not dark. I see it as just a transition. I mean, all things are transitional.
Well, I love your perspective on that, except I'm going to have to differ with you on one thing, is that whenever the wine is gone from my glass, it's gone from my glass. And just for y'all, any of you wine lovers out there, pardon me a second. We're not getting paid by these people. This is the Principa. It's from the Prince from Machiavelli's vineyard in Tuscany. It is fantastic, and you can order that for yourself because it's part of everyone's wine collection and consumption, and that's what we're doing today. So, as we continue, to a man who is good before him, he hath given wisdom and knowledge and joy, and to a sinner he hath given travail, to gather and to heap up, and to give to the good before God. Even this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Well, I thought this was interesting because it seems like if you read between the lines, to heap up and, to give things good to God, that's still vanity and that's still vexation. So if the Bible is telling us that that is vanity and vexation, then what's the point? What's the point of all the ritualistic burnt offerings that are required throughout the Bible and to the age, as it says?
Well, if I would take a part out of Jesus's book, if you go to the New Testament, he claims that the coin given by the person that had no money was more valuable than the person that had extreme amounts of wealth and gave 10%. It's not giving because you can give, it's giving because you feel that you want to give and need to give. So just because you can say, hey, I've got all this money, look where I can throw it around. It kind of reminds me of the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. Not a great guy at the time in his life, but because he had so much money and did so much for his local communities, it looked like he was a good guy.
Well, yes, and I think it is, but it's actually saying the word vanity. Even this is vanity. And it didn't, no discretion between wealthy or poor. It's just you giving is vanity. I can so see that, in that internally, even if you appear to be humble, and you may be humble, and you go, well, I did that, and you have this this good feeling about you. You go into your private place in your home, and you sit there and you think about, you reflect on your day, and you go, well, I just did that good thing. So you have some vanity that is a part of your ego, which I believe is separate from your entire spirit and who you really are. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But I think this book is right when it says, those things are vanity.
Well, if you think about it, a lot of times when someone gives you a gift and they give it to you because it makes them happy, man, look, I'm so excited to give this to you. Or people just donate in general to make themselves feel better. I mean, the leading charitable organization in the UK is not anything that saves lives. It's like a donkey sanctuary. But because giving makes them feel good, it is vanity. Most people don't give for the cause. They give because it makes them feel good.
Sure. And, like there's a lot of probably positive things that come out of those fancy black tie banquets where, they're held in cities all over the world, but especially I think of New York City and their big galas and their the big ballrooms, and everybody's auctioning off all these fancy things, and it's whoever can pay the most that goes to charity, and I paid the most for that, and it makes them feel superior than to the other people, which is vanity, even though some of it still goes to good use, supposedly. But anyway, I really love this one. This is chapter 3, and we have all heard this, and it is so true. To everything a season, and a time to every delight under the heavens, a time to bring forth, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to eradicate the planted, a time to slay, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to skip. And it continues on with that, time for everything. And that is really true. I think if we put that into some perspective, that when we realize that, the boring times of our life, there are times where you have to stand in a boring line. There are times when you have to do things you really don't want to do, but you can still find joy and some type of contentment or comfort in whatever activity, mundane or whatever it is that you're doing. You can find something. There is a time and season for everything, and when we realize that, I think it helps us go through a lot of those other times a lot easier. Just my take on that, and I enjoyed reading that. I think I read it a few times because I just liked it. And I have seen under the sun the place of judgment. There is the wicked in the place of righteousness. There is the wicked. to me, the first thing that came to my mind is that, yeah, well, there's wicked amongst the righteous everywhere, and there's probably a little bit of righteousness amongst the wicked everywhere. You can't separate. I mean, you walk down the street in New York City, and you got hundreds of thousands of people all around you. You got every type of personality under the sun there.
Well, again, it's a lot of his perspective. Just because somebody is good or bad, it doesn't mean that they're really good or bad. It's your perspective on the issue. Something that's good to you is bad to someone else, and something that's bad to you is good to someone else.
Right. Like there may be people that they think it's bad that we're actually reading the Bible and trying to get to the meat of it and find out if it has any really spiritual significance of meaning to our own lives, and then consequently to you guys and anybody else that follows us.
I mean, I would say the vast course of human history, this would be a really bad event. You're supposed to have priests that are trained in dogma to tell you what the word says. You're not supposed to figure these things out for yourself. The invention of the Gutenberg Bible flipped the whole world upside down because we're not reliant on someone else to tell us about it. We can go to the source. We don't need middlemen to give us our spiritual bread. We can do it for ourselves now.
I think that is amazing point, because we can do it ourselves, just as we are doing it now. We are reading it. We are trying to find out what, if anything, is truth in the Bible. And that would be heresy just not too many years ago, and is heresy in the hearts and minds of many people for us just reading it and coming to our own conclusions by being individual critical thinkers. That is frowned upon by a vast majority of people, and I find that disturbing because the information is right in front of everybody, and it has been for a long time, since old Gutenberg. And if you don't read it, you can't critically think about it. I see some people, they'll read different passages and I read the Bible all the time. But no, you haven't. You haven't started from the front, and you haven't gone all the way through it, and you haven't used your critical part of your brain if you still think this is the good book. You just haven't done it. I know so many reasonable-minded people that believe this to be a wonderful thing, and I know for a fact they haven't read it. And I know that if they have, they would utilize their energies in a more positive way to have other rituals besides burning up everything, to burn up to God and this particular God.
Most people that say that, they read the Bible or they wanted to read the Bible. A lot of people is more they wanted to read it, and they've started trying to read it and they give up on it. That's what mostly happens, whether you're of any faith in Christianity, under the Christian umbrella. You might start it or think that you want to start it. You'll have one, but you don't ever read it, or you'll try to read it and you don't like it, or you'll try to go somewhere else and say, well, let me just find the positive. So I'll read the Book of Ruth, and I'll read Genesis 1-3, and I'll read this and that, and then skip around. And that's not how you're supposed to do it. I've even heard preachers say that you're not supposed to read the Bible in order of books. You read it this way, this chapter, and you go back and forth. That's not how books are meant to be read. If it was meant to be read that way, it would be bound that way. But it's not bound that way, so it's not meant to be read that way.
No, for sure. And as we go on in chapter 4, it says, I am praising the dead who have already died above the living who are yet alive. That was an interesting phrase. And better than both of them is he who hath not yet been, in that he hath not seen the evil work that has been done under the sun. See, it's a pretty dark book. I'm glad these people aren't alive yet, so they don't have to see all this crap. And the crap still goes on today. We have more crap now on a global scale thanks to this kind of communication. It is overwhelming, actually. But there is hope. There are good people. There are good people trying to find truth, working toward the meaning and higher purpose of life. And
see, I don't necessarily see that passage as dark. I could see Like your grandfather saying, "Oh, well, y'all have it easy now. You're lucky you didn't have to go through the depression." I think of it as something like that. You're lucky you didn't have to stumble through the wilderness for 40 years and hope that your God would give you bread and water. You're lucky. You're lucky you didn't have to face those things. So
Yeah, I'm lucky that this Jehovah didn't make me go wander around and we had to beg him for water and food because we were about to die of thirst and starvation.
or be forced to go attack city walls and all kinds of other things that they were forced to do.
Yeah, and have their special trumpets that melted walls. So we go on. It says, the two are better than one in that they have a good reward by their labor. Now, that is true. I mean, that's true. You can see that in every economy and every community, every house. If you divide your labors, it's better than having one. It's nice to have somebody who, if they decide to cook and you do the dishes, or you have a lot of people there, you have a nice family gathering for Thanksgiving or whatever it is, and everybody pitches in, does their part. That it does make things a lot better and nicer. I agree with that. So, for if they fall, the one raiseth up his companion, but woe to the one who falleth, and there is not a second to raise him up. Yeah, I guess that goes to speak to being alone. Being alone probably sucks. It probably does. I mean, I'll enjoy being alone a lot, but I also enjoy having the people that I care about around me. It makes life more enjoyable to share ideas, to share bonds of affection, and being vain and giving pleasurable trinkets to people I care about. It's fun. And better is a poor and a wise youth than an old and foolish king. Boy, we have a lot of old and foolish kings throughout history, and I could not agree with that statement more. And it says, when thou vowest a vow to God, delay not to complete it, for there is no pleasure in fools. That which thou vowest complete. Now, I agree with that on a whole lot of levels, but if you vow something to somebody, there is nothing more important than your word. If for some reason you're unable to fulfill it, for whatever reason, you need to let the other person know. Like if I said I'm going to be there at 2:00 and all of a sudden it's 4:00 and I haven't called you to tell you why or anything else and I messed up your day. I just think that's a jackass move and very disrespectful of the only thing people really have, which is time. But just a vow in general. Your word is your bond, and if you say you're going to do something, do it. It's very important.
It is very important. That is something that I feel that we have lost during this time of such connectivity, as we've lost some of the simple things of, if I say something, I'm going to do something. Now there's always so many so many excuses readily at hand that they can just, oh, well, I don't feel like that right now, so I'll just say, whatever. But I think if you vow to do something, you should give it, everything you got to complete that vow, because where you're going to be next time.
Right, you're exactly right. And I vow to continue enjoying this wine from Machiavelli's vineyard. It is quite critical to the vow I gave to you moments ago before we started that we were going to enjoy this bottle of wine. I am not going to let you down, sir. It goes on in this chapter 6 where it says, sweet is the sleep of the laborer, whether he eat little or much. And sufficiency of the wealthy is not suffering him to sleep. I do like that, because sweet is the sleep of labor. How many times, you live on a ranch, I live on a farm. When we go out and we're working all day and we get hot and sweaty and doing all sorts of farm and ranch work, when it's time to go to bed, man, for me at least, I sleep like any king, better. It's just great. And there's a lot of truth in that it is sweet, it is wonderful. And wealth kept for its possessor is for his evil. I don't agree with that. We keep wealth and we grow wealth in order to preserve a form of what we hope tomorrow might be. I don't subscribe to this notion that wealth kept for its possessor is for his evil. Uh, I think there are a lot of people that do that, but having and creating and storing things of value does nothing to diminish one's character unless what you're doing with it is for some sort of evil end.
You know, it's interesting that they would even put this in the Bible because it seems that they operate on that double standard that it's bad if you do it, but it's completely okay if you give all your wealth to the church and the church hoards it. That's okay, but you shouldn't keep it for yourself. They even make mentions of if a man loves silver, you won't be happy with it. Like, I think they're trying to say one of those things that, money can't buy happiness, which is, you hear that a lot. And I think that is completely and utterly wrong. Money cannot create happiness. If you're not a happy person, giving you money, throwing money at a problem rarely fixes it. But if you are a well-educated person, and doesn't mean any formal education, just educated in the ways of the world and how to make yourself happy, money can be a wonderful thing for your own personal happiness. It doesn't create happiness, but one of money's only purposes is to buy happiness, to buy comforts, to make things easier for you, especially when you get more advanced in age in life. We're talking about a time here when you had to go down to the stream and wash your clothes. If you had somebody to do that for you, if you could pay someone to do that, that money sure would increase your life and its expectancy.
Sure, and money affords, I think, one of the most valuable aspects of life, which is the slivers of leisure time that we can carve out. And if you have some type of accumulation of wealth, it affords you, more often than not, those times where you can be in private to study, you can go out and paint, as we did this weekend, or all these other things to find joy and not have to worry about, I'm doing this, but I really need to be over here doing that, or I'm not going to be able to eat next week. It does provide as a nice tool to allow those leisurely moments to be able to suck the marrow from life. Yeah, who is that from? Emerson or Thoreau? I don't remember. But anyway, just suck out the marrow of life. That's exactly right. So, every man also to whom God hath given wealth and riches, and hath given him power to eat of it, and to accept his portion, and to rejoice in his labor, this is a gift from God. This was such a contradiction for me. He said, now all of a sudden, wealth is a gift from God, but just a few chapters up, possessing wealth is evil. It's another example of how this book is so contradicting itself on practically every page. It just is.
One point that I'm glad this got brought up, because I missed one of my points in my notes of where money and happiness. So God, at the end of our discussion with Job, how does he reward Job? With money. He pays him off with money. How many times through this book has God been satisfied with a bribe of silver or gold or offerings made to him?
Many times. And you're right. And then a man to whom God giveth wealth and riches, this is kind of another contradiction. A man to whom God giveth wealth and riches and honor, there is no lack to his soul of all that he desires. And God giveth him not power to eat of it, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and it is an evil disease. That just seems rather strange to me. Whenever God wants his pounds of silver and gold in a bunch of previous books of the Bible, and just talked about on the same page the wealth is evil, but also it's a gift from God. These are just strange things. If this, to me, is one of the things that I keep referring back to. If this is the meat of the spirituality of nations, there's not a whole lot of consistency, and it's not congruent, and it doesn't really show you how to be a human being on a good level.
If you don't think this is consistency and congruency, then you're not going to like reading the next book, because it sounds like a jumble of squiggly lines all over the place.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to read it in full. It's something. So, though he had lived 1,000 years twice over, yet good he hath not seen. To the same place doth not everyone go. So, everyone goes to the place, no matter how many thousands of years you live, you've never seen a good thing. What does that even mean? That everything is just bad? I don't know. I find that, God is good. God creates all things good, except for all the murder and petulance and diseases and killing firstborns and all those other things. Other than that, yeah.
Well, it depends on how you're looking at this verse, what lenses you're using. If you're using this from a overzealous, very excited, happy preacher from the pulpit, you can use this line and say that nobody's seen anything good. You think all the wonders of today, they're nothing. Once you go into God's kingdom, it's going to be great. Everything there is all wonderful and beautiful. And praise God and give me all your money. Just give it to me right now, because you don't know anything good. Because when you get to that afterlife, that's where it's going to be great. Everything in this life is garbage. That's where those little lines, those are meant for cherry picking, depends on where you stand on the line. We're looking at it as a negative. But somebody can look at that and be like, wow, that'll make a good 20-minute sermon. I can bring the fire and brimstone out, and I can say, hey, praise the Lord.
Yeah, praise the Lord. Yeah, for sure. And you're right. They do that. And this whole notion of wealth that keeps being brought up in this particular book and a lot of the other ones, it's kind of strange to me. It brings me back to a time in my youth where my grandfather gave me some cash because I was going to go to college, and he wanted it to be easier for me without getting loans. And my first thought was I needed to take 10% of that money and give it to the church. And so I took out some of that money, and then I realized I was shy to go pay tuition. And I was like, oh, crap. So I went back to the preacher and said, can I have some of that back because I'm shy? He said, oh, no, you already gave it to God. God doesn't give money back. I just thought that was funny. It just stuck with me. I was like, well, all right. I think I might have made a mistake there. So,
yeah, giving money to God is like throwing something in a river. It goes one direction.
Yeah, not back to you. Now, that's different from karma. Giving and helping people, those sort of things I strongly believe and have seen it firsthand, how that can come back to you. And there's also the saying, no good deed goes unpunished, because you can help certain people out and all they see is their own personal negativity, none of their own personal responsibility. I've seen that too. I just think of the examples where I've helped some people out and they think, oh, well, you helped me, you should finish helping me by doing a whole lot more for me. Yeah, well, okay. You can only do so much. I do like this verse in chapter 7 where it says, for wisdom is a defense, money is a defense, and the advantage of the knowledge of wisdom is she reviveth her possessors. So money and wisdom revives the people that possess it. And that could very well be true. I think it is true in a lot of cases, except for those people that are just naturally sociopaths or psychotics or severely depressed people. Just the regular, normal person wanted to have a nice life. I think wisdom and money does revive the human soul. It allows you the opportunities to, let's say, go travel, to go do things, see new cultures, experience new things that you can't experience wherever it is that you live. Like you can't explain India to somebody if they've never been to India. They've been stuck in, East Texas or Louisiana. They won't get it, no matter how much you describe it, no matter how many documentaries they see on it. They're not going to understand India until you go travel it. That's just...
That is one thing that travel really does, is it gives you a completely different mind frame, because there's nothing like it.
No, which is probably another reason why travel is so restricted today.
Probably.
Probably. The wisdom giveth strength to a wise man. And I think that is true. There is not a righteous man on earth that doth good and sinneth not. Well, of course, that's true. I mean, no matter what, we all regret certain actions and words we say, or even just simple misspeak, Freudian slips, I mean, we do it all the time, and it can hurt somebody's feelings, and you're like, oh, I really didn't mean it that way. I meant it to be this other way. It just didn't come out that way. It's kind of the limitations of language. But anyway, that is what it is. So whoso is keeping a command knoweth no evil thing. Well, I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit on that one. Just come on now. Whoso is keeping a command knoweth no evil. Alrighty, so by not working on the Sabbath, but you're still walking around looking for other people who aren't working on the Sabbath, and God tells you to kill them, which has happened many times in this Bible. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say there's some evil. So, I know that there is good to those fearing God. This whole fearing God thing is confusing to me. I don't believe that. I don't believe we should fear the infinite intelligence. I believe the infinite intelligence is for it as much as ourselves, that we are feeding it and it is feeding us, and we should revel and love all of that and not fear it at all. Fear is just what sells newspapers. It's what makes people watch CNN. I mean, I don't know.
Well, yes, fear through that modern scope does, but also fear is a powerful motivator that, I might be decrepit in my old age, so I need to put some money back because I'm afraid of living without something. Or, I need to get, insurance is reasonably cheap compared to if your house burns down or gets lost in a mudslide, an act of God. So to have a reasonable respect and fear of some things is okay. Fear keeps you from doing a lot of really stupid things. I know when I was younger, you would jump off of the roof of a house, or you would do all kinds of stuff because you were young and invincible. And now I get older, I'm like, man, you shouldn't do that. Like, it doesn't hurt you now, but later it will. When you're over there maxing out on a bench press, like, there's really no need for it. Having a little bit of fear, healthy respect for something, I don't necessarily see as a bad thing. Fear can be a tool that you use.
I can understand what you're saying in that fear, but I also think that is what wisdom is. It doesn't have to be fear. You're just wise enough to know the difference.
Maybe, but a lot of your wisdom comes in from you make a mistake and you learn the best things in life from paying for it with money or blood. Those are the lessons that stick out the most. So, you learned a lesson with blood. Oh, that hurt. I'm not going to do that again. Or you learn a lesson with money where it cost you, basically your whole life savings. You're not apt to make that mistake again. So I can see that as fear. They're painful experiences, and I think that they can be used for positive. But I don't think fear for the sake of fear and fear mongering is a good idea. I think knowing yourself and having the wisdom of your past as a lens to see fear through is something that we should strive for, not just fear for fear's sake. If I made that come across any way I wanted to, because, language is such a limited.
Yeah, I just think of fear of when we feared to jump out of an airplane. That was fearful, but I think the wise man, after the decision, after the event was over, wisdom would say it was probably one of the best things you've ever done.
But the fear is what made it exciting in the first place.
Until you jumped out of the plane. The second your body left that plane, there was no more fear.
No.
Zero fear. There was no fear any time from then until your feet hit the ground.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I take that back. Until the parachute opened. But I didn't have any fear at all until the parachute opened. It didn't occur to me about the parachute. It was just amazing. The whole thing was amazing. And yeah, I don't know about the fear. I think it's just where they're talking about wisdom. I think there is some relevance that you could, scrape away from that. Where if you're wise, you know the difference between jumping off the roof on a trampoline and not. I had a growth spurt once where we used to jump off the roof onto the trampoline, and my growth spurt happened. I go do it again. Well, the trampoline hits the bottom, knocked the wind out of me. And I realized, I shouldn't do that anymore. That's part of, I guess, growing in wisdom, but it wasn't so much fear. I don't know. But anyway, let's move on. We got, for the living know that they die, and the dead know not anything. Maybe. And there is no more to them a reward, for their remembrance hath been forgotten. It's kind of like the same thing we've been talking about. But their love also, their hatred also, their envy also hath already perished. And they have no more a portion to the age and all that hath been done under the sun. That seems to me that you're putting just an automatic stamp on eternity within the Bible. They're perished. They are no more. There is nothing else. You're done. That's what I get out of this. Their love also, their hatred also, their envy hath already perished. And they have no more a portion to the age and all that has been done under the sun. Maybe their portion was just that tiny little bit of life that they're referring to. It is kind of, you could take that in a lot of different ways. I just thought that just raises some questions that nobody can answer. Everybody's going to have their own little perspective on that because all of our perspectives are little. And just one of those things. And now, as we are approaching the end of Ecclesiastes, words of the mouth of the wise are gracious, and the lips of a fool swallow him up. And boy, do we ever see that all the time. I mean, all the time. Do you ever catch yourself talking, like if you think you're talking too much and you go, I might just need to bite my tongue.
There are times, yes, I've done that. Or have you ever been in an argument and realized halfway through the argument you're on the wrong side, but you finish it out because you've already committed to fighting for that side? I'm sure that's happened. You're like, she's right, but I got to keep going.
That is true. I have done that in my youth. But I would have to say for the, as you get older, you try to scrape out as much wisdom and understanding as you can from all your past experiences and from the experiences of others. And then you do your best not to do that. Because if you realize that you're wrong, I don't have any problem anymore to say, you just made me change my perception. You made a light come on in that dark closet of my mind that made me see that wasn't true. I think that just comes with practice and doing your best to accommodate the words and understanding of others. And then sometimes you realize, hey, I think I was the jackass in that situation. Yeah. It's kind of like that old comedy show. I forget the name of it, where the cops are the little Nazi guys, and they go, "Do you think we're the baddies?" It's like, it's an extreme example, but it's like, we don't want to be the baddies. So as we go on to the final chapter, chapter 12 of Ecclesiastes. Dust returneth to the earth as it was, and the spirit returneth to God who gave it. So now the body dies, we go to God. And that's a pretty big deal for the Bible. And further, Actually, that's the word, further. From these, my son, be warned. The making of many books hath no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Now, there is some truth to that. You can really study too much, and at the same time, if you don't study and are not aware of history, not history from the victors, but just history as much as you can forensically get it, um, helps you and the people around you understand what has happened, what is going to happen, what is happening now. It does make you weary, that is for sure. So it's kind of like what we say, don't do things in moderation. And then for every work doth God give, for every work doth God bring into judgment with every hidden thing, whether good or bad. So God judges, of course he does. We don't understand his judgment, and some of you would say, well, you're not meant to understand it, but if you look throughout the Bible, God himself says many times, and even Moses himself got onto God for being evil. Well, maybe God realized he had a light come on in his closet.
Maybe.
I don't know. But that was an interesting book. I enjoyed it. I thought there were some nuggets to take away. But as always, or at least so far, it still made you wanting. You still wanted clarification from all of the contradictions. You still wanted something more that was not there, and that is from Genesis to Ecclesiastes.
The way I felt about this book and why I didn't really like it so much is, a lot of people see this as really the first philosophical work of the Bible, and it is, but I felt like I was watching a B or C list movie of a C list philosopher ranting on. And there's so many other beautiful and wonderful philosophers out there that you could spend your time, learning. I think because this is in the Bible and you want to know what's in it, yes, you should spend your time studying it. But when you look at some of the other philosophical works throughout the course of history, I'm just go to the Federalist Papers.
Oh.
What a great work that is compared to this. It's a B-list or C-list movie at best.
At best, for sure. Or just the lectures of Alan Watts, or even Sadhguru, or there's so many other ones. It's just amazing that there are so many different avenues to help understand and navigate through life than this.
I guess this is a lot of people's only form of philosophy they're ever going to get. They're raised in a Christian home and they say, all right, read Ecclesiastes. And somebody might actually read this whole book because it's short. So, maybe a lot of people find it so endearing and they love it so much is because it's the only philosophical work that they've ever been exposed to. And they've never really explored, Aristotle or Plato, Socrates. The list goes on and on. Maybe that's why this book is held into such high standing and regard.
Well, it's also held in such regard because in puritanical America, when it was formed, if you fell asleep in church, they would have the stick and on one end was the feather. They wake you up, and the next time they stabbed you with a little knife. You had to go to church and you fell asleep. You got the one chance. The second time you got stabbed. And you had the societal pressures of having this forced upon you, which is unfortunate. Mr. Schmidt, anything you would like to add to close us out?
Yes, join us on our website, Mystics of Texas, and all the alternative media. We have BitChute, Vimeo,
Rumble,
Odyssey, and after that, have a good day.